Hello, what's up, and welcome to a Jump Inside episode on the game Dragon Age Origins. In case you don't know what a Jump Inside episode is, basically it's what you'll experience when you first jump into a game, and what we'll do is we'll condense the first 2 hours of that game into a 10-15 minute video, so you get to see what you'll experience when you first jump onto the game. However, for this particular game, I'm probably going to natter on quite a bit right at the beginning of this video, so if you do want to skip ahead, please click in the time codes in the descriptions. Anyway, without no further ado, I'm going to be my nattering in 3, 2, 1. Okay, everyone gone who wants to leave and everyone who wants to stay. Awesome. Brilliant. Okay, Dragon Age Dreadwolf is coming out very soon on the 11th of June. In fact, if you're watching this video after the 11th of June, you should definitely go and check it out. Except it's not called Dreadwolf anymore. It's called Veilguard, which is the new name for the game. I absolutely love that as a title. I think it's brilliant. But I think it's very important to go back to where everything all began. This is Dragon Age Origins. It came out in 2009, and it's generally one of my favorite games of all times, and I really enjoy playing this game. This is an RPG, but it's a little bit more than an RPG. All the stories in this RPG are their own storyline, and it's really cool how they're crafted. I think there's about 5 different storylines that overlap each other here, there, and everywhere. And as you play the game, you get so condensed into one of these stories that by the time you get out of it, you're like, I've completed the game. And then you go like, oh no, wait, I haven't completed the game. There's another few more stories that I have to conquer and complete. And I love that. That is beautiful. Compared to its counterpart, Mass Effect, that is like loads of different stories that lead into one big storyline. This is similar, but it's not quite that. It's loads of little stories that lead up to a big finish, but those little stories aren't little. They're quite big stories. They have history, they have meaning, they have emotion. This game gets you with emotion, and it is beautiful. And you'll see within this video that there is so much, even in just the tutorial, that I think this is just brilliant. Anyway, without no further ado, let's get started with Dragon Age Origins. Okay, so you first start with this opening cinematic, which is going to pretty much tell you about the history of the game. I'm not going to even try to explain this. The person who does explain this in the game is a character called Duncan. Duncan is by far one of the best video game characters ever invented, and even though he's in this game for such a short space of time, there is a whole legacy behind him, and he is just a brilliant character as a whole. And it's a beautiful history. I'm not going to explain what it's all about, but basically, in very short context, it's the Grey Wardens versus the Blight. At least that's what this first game's about. And when it's called Dragon Age Origins, it really does, this game sets the setting for all the other Dragon Age games. This is where it's all based from, and like with no doubt you can just see how some of this actually plays out. I mean, I'm not going to go fully into it, but it's a beautiful cinematic as a whole. But I think that we can skip straight to where this game really starts. And it starts right here in the character generation menu. Generation? I thought it was curation, but no, this one's generation. And you get to choose what gender you want to be. You get to choose what race, which is whether you want to be a human, an elf, or a dwarf. You get to choose your class, which is warrior, mage, or rogue. And then whichever one you choose, you get background options, or you might get one background option. But depending what you use as your character, you start with a different background. So if you pick an elf, you'll get an elf background. If you choose a human, you'll get a human background. If you choose a mage, you might get a particular mage background. And it really does affect how the whole game's played. What gender you are, what race you are, what's your background, all that kind of stuff. It takes effect in the game, and it does that so beautifully. And I like playing as a human noble because there are certain elements that you get with that you don't get with other classes. But again, every single class is as awesome as each other, and it gives you a completely, slightly different style of story depending how you create your character. And I think it's wonderful that they let you have that choice. Your choices begin right here in the menu screen as you create your character, and I think that's wonderful. What an awesome way to start your game off. I'm not going to go through how you design your character. That's totally normal, whether you design your hair, your beard, what your character looks like. That's completely up to you. I'm not going to tell you how to design your character. You know how to design a character if you've played games before. You just get to choose and style your character up as much as you want. You can just go with a baseline character. You can do what you want with it. But once you're ready, you'll start the game off and it will give you a bit of introduction about what type of character you've chosen to build. One thing I will mention, don't worry about your character's voice. Don't worry about that at all. Your character doesn't speak in this game. They may get hurt and they may go, but they won't be speaking in this game. There will be no conversation that your character will talk. Other characters will talk to you, but your character specifically won't be talking in any of the conversation dialogue options. Now, I'm not going to go through what's the most important points to spend on attributes or skills or anything like that. You can read them, you can go through them yourself and experience all of that. However, I will mention that persuasiveness right at the top there, put some points on that because that one gets you in certain conversation areas. So I would recommend starting off with that. That's where you base everything off of. It allows you to do more speech options, and because this game is a game where you play with other characters around you, so you'll have like a small party and you get to put skills on your party members, you're the only one who's got the speech option, so only you can talk as the leader of the party. So there will be certain points inside different areas of this game where speech is quite important, so I'd recommend putting some points on there. But anyway, without no further ado, let's get down with the actual story itself. And when you play the game, you'll be introduced to your character via Duncan will talk again and give you a bit of introduction to everything about your character, about the history of your character, pretty much everything that you designed the background to be. This is what you'll get introduced to. And then without no further ado, the game will actually begin. You'll have a bit of a dialogue option to begin with, and then you'll be able to move around and do things. Now, if I was to give you an introduction to every piece of conversation, dialogue option, every bit of story there is, just in this beginning part alone, I'd probably be here forever. So I'm going to give it a bit of a fast-paced talk right now and say that you live in the castle with your mother and father, but your father's going off to war, so you need to stay at the castle and look after the castle with your mother. You say goodbye to your brother with the rest of your family, and that works out lovely and nicely. Your brother goes off to join the army first, and then your father goes in a bit later. However, there is an issue. The castle that you live at gets attacked, and you have to try to escape. So basically, you'll go through a battle, and you'll have to attack some enemies just to get out of the castle until you find your father, who is lying there on the floor, dying. He is about to die, but your mother stays there with your father, so he doesn't die alone. They die together. After a heartfelt goodbye, you escape the castle with Duncan, who was originally there because he was recruiting a Grey Warden. A Grey Warden is basically a soldier that is made to fight Darkspawn. And the person that he wanted was your character. So you leave the castle and you go to the warfront where they're planning on battling and destroying the Darkspawn. You meet the Majesty, the King, who has a plan of attack. We'll get to that a bit later. Right now, you have a mission. Your mission is to do what Duncan tells you to do, and he tells you to go into the wilds and get some Darkspawn blood, because that's part of the joining, which is how you become a Grey Warden. You're also there to retrieve some treaties, which is held here by the Witch of the Wilds, Flemeth. I'm not going to go into the Witch of the Wilds and who she is. That's a whole nother story altogether. But yeah, you retrieve the treaties and then you bring them back to the camp and then begin the joining. Okay, makes sense? Awesome, let's go. Now, during the joining, you have to drink Darkspawn blood. And the thing about Darkspawn blood is it's a bit poisonous. So some characters die during the joining. Some characters do not. So it's a very secret ritual that these characters take. In fact, one of the members in your party that's part of the joining actually gets so scared that he starts backing away. You're not allowed to leave the joining. Once you're in the joining, you're part of the joining. You can't leave the ritual. It's secret for a reason. So one of the characters actually dies during your joining. Then it's your turn to drink, and actually you survive. I mean, that's pretty obvious considering that the game's about you, but the other two characters don't make it and you do. And now it's time for war. I've left a few bits out because there's a few spoilers, but once you've woken up from the joining, it's now time for war, and you, the king, and his general discuss what you're going to be doing in the war. Duncan's going to be down on the battlefield, and you and Alistair, who's the other character that you journeyed out with, you're going to be lighting the torch to signal the general to join the king on the battlefield. Then comes one of the greatest cutscenes of all times. It's this lovely battle sequence. I absolutely love this battle sequence. There's a whole army versus a whole army. I just generally, I love this so much. By the way, this is still part of the tutorial. We haven't even started the game yet. If this is what the tutorial's like, just imagine what the rest of the game's going to be like. But that's not your job. Your job is to get to the top of the tower and to light the torch. And part of that is fighting through all these enemies. Now, I will mention the fighting's a little bit different in this game than compared to other games. See, you don't actually do the fighting yourself, you do the commanding of the fighting. So you select what enemy you want to battle, then your character will run over, battle that enemy, and if you want to do a special attack, you select it in one of the bottom right hand buttons. So there's a shield, bash, and all that kind of stuff that you have. And basically, that's how you fight in this game. You don't slash the sword every time a character's battling another character. You just control what you want your character to battle, and your character will battle for you. Now, in the top left, you have your party members, and you can select through them and fight as them as well. I don't do that at this point in the game because your party members and yourself are quite strong, so you don't really have to worry about battling these particular enemies or taking control or having a battle strategy, because your party are quite strong, you're quite strong, and the enemy at this section of the game are quite weak, especially if you're playing on casual difficulty, which I currently am for this particular video. As we proceed and we get to the top of the castle, we will have a final boss battle with an ogre, but after the ogre is dead, you will then be able to light the torch and to activate the final cutscene of the tutorial. And in this cutscene, you see a big explosion from the tower right at the top there, which looks absolutely epic. And I'm not going to tell you what happens in this cutscene because it's an awesome cutscene, and I'm going to leave it right there. But what happens in this cutscene does set the setting for the rest of the game, and I love how this game starts off. It's such a dramatic game, and I love it. It's beautiful. If you haven't played this game, I do recommend this game if you love RPGs and you like games like this. It's really good. If you're a fan of this game, then you'll probably know that I've left quite a bit out of this video. It is quite a lot in this game for very obvious purposes. If I did put everything in this video, it'll probably take me up like 3 hours or something to tell you about everything that this game offers. But for this basis here, a bit just the story alone, I love this game for the story. It's brilliant. If you are a fan of this game, tell me what you think about this, because there's so much within this game that it's just wonderful. And I can't wait to see what happens in the next game. We're going to hear something very soon. So yeah, that's Dragon Age Origins. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on another Jump Inside video. What a beautiful game this is. I will see you guys later. Goodbye.